Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a privilege to be with you guys today. Thank you, panel, for coming out as well. I want to take some time to get to some questions, but just some of the comments that I hear, I feel like that need to be addressed. We stand for synagogues, temples, churches, so the misnomer that we heard earlier, this is just about churches, is certainly offensive to me. My friend Rabbi Fred Gutman in Greensboro, we don't agree many times politically, but he's one of my dearest friends. Rabbi Andy Korn was in my office yesterday, but I also stand for my friends Dr. Muhammad Faruqi, Shahzad Akbar, and those great people, not just because they're friends of mine, but because they have every right to speak according to their religious beliefs as anybody else. Another comment that was just recently mentioned was talking about a pastor as long as he is, I believe, operating in his personal capacity. And I thought about, once again, this is a place where what laymen, what pastors, what the American public, the rules they have to play by are so often different than what Congress gets to play by. In this capacity, if we were to endorse someone, it wouldn't be in our private. We would probably say, in any kind of billing, it would say Congressman so-and-so endorses so-and-so. And I just think it's kind of humorous that we put limitations as far as a pastor on what he can do if it's under the guise of the church. So-and-so is this pastor. Make sure he is saying that it's in his personal capacity as opposed to representing a certain church body. And Rabbi Saberstein, you had talked about it a little bit earlier and talked about two people running in the same church. What would the pastor do? I had two thoughts on that. One is local churches should have the autonomy to be able to make whatever decisions they believe as long as within the confines of the law. And I will tell you, as a former pastor, you talked about that being such a crisis, and as you've probably experienced as well. Crises are when you're in the room of somebody breathing their last breath and struggling to give words to a family. Crises are when you have a home falling apart and you're looking for guidance to be able to put that back together. I trust pastors to make the decisions well when it comes to the political in this capacity. So let me ask a couple questions, and I want to start with, and I was out, Ms. Ankal, is that the?
Ankai.
Ankai, okay, thank you for the pronunciation. The federal tax code, in regards to a tax-exempt charitable organization, among other things, must not participate in or intervene in, which is including publishing or distributing of statements, any political campaign on behalf or in opposition to any candidate for public office. Indirectly is a key word I want to focus on there. What does it mean to indirectly intervene in a campaign? And if you, a legal expert, can't tell me, how in the world are pastors supposed to know what kind of conduct is legal and what isn't?
And that's a fabulous point, and that's exactly the point that I believe I and ADF is making today, is that the vagueness of these rules and regulations, the secrecy behind some of the regulations that the IRS uses to investigate churches and other nonprofit organizations is just baffling, and it's very difficult for attorneys and certainly lay people to understand.
Yeah, I don't think this fear is unfounded, whether it's your Hindu background, Muslim background, but I do find it very interesting that 81% of the American public, 81% of evangelicals voted for President Trump. This fear is real. It exists out there, that there are some restrictions that are trending this direction. Another question I would have for you, you use the word chilling effect in your testimony. Can you describe how the Johnson Amendment has a chilling effect on speech?
Certainly, precisely because of the vagueness and the inconsistency with how the IRS applies the law, with whether the IRS is going to actually continue to apply the law in the same ways when the IRS imposes a penalty and then actually rescinds that penalty or refunds that penalty with interest. It causes a lot of confusion for pastors and leaders of nonprofit organizations, which is unfortunate, but is what causes a chilling effect because pastors are uncertain of how the Johnson Amendment will be applied to them. They, in fact, do not make political statements, not just about candidates, but about issues that do affect the church.
Yeah, I just had a meeting recently with about 55 pastors. We do these breakfasts about once a month, and we invite all of our friends from different places, synagogues, temples, whatever it might be. One of the concerns they continue to bring up is this mass confusion as far as what they can and cannot say. It's very unclear. Ms. Holcomb, some believe an amended Johnson Amendment would politicize the 501c3 organizations, or in this case, synagogues, temples, or churches. Would nonprofit organizations be forced to stand in support or opposition to any political candidate?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for that question. No, absolutely not. If you don't want to speak about these issues, you certainly do not have to. But right now, we have the heavy hand of government coming down on one side of this equation, saying that you may not. That's fundamentally a theological decision and should be left to the churches.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back.